My name is David Harper and I'm a farmer from Top Barn Farm, and as a farmer my job is to grow food for the people of this country, the bread. We've called this little film The Miracle of the Harvest because I believe that food production is a miracle and we farmers are a part of it. I really feel that we need to honour the farming community. I think an incredible group of people working extremely hard, taking on new ideas all the time. All the time it's changing. We've also made the film to glorify God for the incredible creation that He's produced and the way of producing and multiplying food for people, and also to show the public where their food is produced, because many don't know, and this is sad really. Every farmer loves the land, and there's a very strong bond between a farmer and his land and then his livestock and the crops. As farmers, we just love to do what we're doing, and many farmers will farm to a very old age. On the Harper side, there have been 5 generations now who are involved with farming. Well, I'm including my 15-year-old grandson, who's already can drive the big tractors and seems to know all about farming, although he's still at school. But so we've had 5 generations on this land, and we just love the land we farm. I was born during the Second World War, and there was a severe shortage of food at that time. Britain was almost starving, and so the main object of farming was to grow food, as much food as we possibly could, to feed the nation. So farmers really set themselves the challenge of farming, and during the 1960s people were buying machinery, mechanizing their cropping, combines were coming in, irrigation schemes being laid down, and all types of new farming were being developed. It was a very exciting time to be in farming. And by 1980, we were in fact growing something like 80% of the food, the temperate foods that we were able to grow in this country, which was quite a success story. And I'm really proud of the industry of what we've done, and particularly of the young people coming into the industry now. My word, they're showing us how to do it because they've been to college, they know their way around, they're business minded, they're also marketing minded, which is important because in our day we never worried about the market. If we could produce it, it had got a ready sale. Not so now.
John Harper, I'm a partner with my wife in Harper Farming, and we farm here at Top Barn. Mum and Dad bought me a greenhouse when I was about 8 years old, I think, and I just enjoyed growing crops ever since I can remember, to be honest. So we farm about 1,200 acres in mainly the Severn and the Team Valleys. Our business is mainly vegetables, horticultural production. So we grow quite a wide range of summer vegetables, from pak choy to courgettes, spring onions. We do quite a few different types of herbs. We start getting busy in March with the planting, so it's sort of like a blank canvas. Everything is, for us in the vegetables, is grown from March, and we actually finish planting at the end of August. So it's a hugely long planting window. A lot of the products we're doing are available in the shops 12 months of the year. Over the years we have tried to extend the season at both ends by planting earlier. We do use various techniques to get the crops earlier and grow them later as well. 6 years ago we used to harvest every green bean by hand. So we'd have 150 staff pulling each bean off the plant in the fields. When the minimum wage was increasing and going up and up, I went out to Holland to look how they did it on the continent. They don't use any people. They use machines to harvest. So there was very few. I think it's only one person doing it in the UK at the time. People said it couldn't be done. But we went out and we purchased, along with Minor Weir and Willis, we purchased a harvester which harvests the beans. and can do the work of probably 400 people with one person sat on it. And also the beans aren't touched by human hands. You know, that was a real game changer. And then we also bought a processing machine which sits in the shed. With the new harvesting technique, we now bring it to the shed in trailers. The trailers are then tipped up and the beans are then sorted. So the rubbish is taken out with air, and then the beans are washed and they're dried off and then graded again, and they go into chilling. So it's an extra process, but that only takes up 4 or 5 people in the shed. We seed the pak choi every week. So we start in March and we finish at the end of August, and we're planting about 600,000 or 700,000 plants every week. So we use a mechanical seeding machine which goes into modules. The modules are then taken down into our propagation facility and then grown up for about 3 to 4 weeks. Then they're taken out and planted. Each plant is planted by hand on the machine. So we're planting for 3 to 4 days per week, about 5 or 6 acres. They're then watered, and 3 to 4 weeks later, we're straight into harvesting. So it's a very quick turnaround, quite an intensive crop and a sort of high turnover. It's got to be perfect. So there's a real attention to detail from right to start. We've got everything likes to eat pak choi. It's a tasty vegetable, and it's not just us who want to eat it. It's slugs, it's pigeons, it's rabbits, it's flea beetle, it's caterpillars, it's everything. So, and we can't spray the crop with anything. So we have to use different techniques to keep it clean and keep the leaves unholy.
I am Brian Ingano, Quality Assurance Manager in charge of compliance. Pak choi, for example, that was a crop that was never really grown here. You know, it was something that was imported or you got from Northern Europe, Southern Europe during the winter months. But now you're extending, you know, from May, you know, through to October, you can get UK product. Then there are those who are doing it under glass, so they're able to start earlier in the season. So you get greenhouse product before you move on to field product. Tender stem broccoli, again, that was something that was predominantly wasn't grown here, but that's quite a new crop, which is a combination of a cross between kale and broccoli, developed by a Japanese company. And the market for that has grown. It's because it's easy, you know, broccoli because of the thick stem, but tender stem, it means you can eat the whole product. That's why it's proving to be very popular.
Back in 2002, we started growing a few runner beans, and they wanted us literally to put them into plastic bags. And it's started like that, in a field, in a lorry container, just putting bags through a sealer. So that's evolved through the years. We're growing more different types of vegetables to what you see today, which is quite a large building with 150 staff working, shift work in there. We've mechanised up some of the packing, so some of the machines you'll see in there need only a few people to work it, and packing a lot of the vegetables and labelling them ready for the supermarket. Very regulated, very audited. We're dealing with 5 or 6 of the UK supermarkets doing daily orders. The orders will come through in the morning, and they need to be. We have about a window of about 4 or 5 hours to pack the order and send it out in cold chain to the depots. The supermarkets have done an incredible job of getting food to people very cheaply, but there is very much a disconnect. Food is now packaged up, and people have less and less clue what plant it grows on or what animal it comes from.
My name's Joe Harper, I'm 15, and I think it's something that I've always wanted to do, and last couple of years of COVID and that, I've sort of, you know, really got going on it, and I wonder what I'd do without it, you know. I'm a bit like my dad. I like the growing and the satisfaction of it. I like the machine kind of things, that interests me. You know, like designing and building kit and how everything works. Yeah, there's nothing like it.
Hi, I'm Rob Collins, and I'm a contractor and fruit grower. From the moment I can remember, which would have probably been the age of 4 or 5, just wanted to be out on the farm. The moment that school was broken up, I'd be on a tractor, and to the moment that we went back to school. The excitement that I get out of agriculture has changed. The sort of doing part of agriculture, you know, the sitting on the kit, the actual day-to-day, I still enjoy, but it's trying to get to that end goal for me these days, and seeing projects, you know, thrive and reach their potential that you'd hoped they had. For me, that's the big thing these days. I would say in the last 15 years we've made progressive steps to improve the quality of the pick, to improve the handling of the fruit, and also to improve the speed of the machine, and the usability of it as well. You know, because it was very difficult to monitor them and drive them and understand them in the early years. But now you'd hope that it's actually a little bit easier. The machine does a lot of the work for you. For us, that's all come about from just gradual improvements over every single season, just looking at things and thinking, we just need to improve this, we need to improve that. And it's been in incremental steps over a long period of time. With the cider, we try to push it both ways because the factories simply can't press the fruit fast enough, and we're trying to get the quality right for them. So we're pushing apples on the early varieties, we're trying to push those on and get those ripening quicker, and then with the main crop we're actually trying to hold that back a bit, you know. So the areas that we know we're going to be harvesting last, we're actually trying to hold that back and keep fruit on the trees, so that you know, because as soon as they're off and on the floor, that's where they are, you know, they're immediately starting to deteriorate. Obviously we're dealing with a crop that harvests off the floor. But yeah, you've got to change, you've got to be adaptable, you've got to be open-minded to everything that's new, and you've got to listen to not only what are you hearing from outside of your work group, but inside your work group too. You know, listen to the boys, listen to any idea that's coming to you, because a 1% increase in your business can be a big thing. You know, if you're in ag at the moment and you've got through all the stresses and strains that we know the industry is bringing to the farm gate, and you're still there, you know, then you've got to be doing something right. So, you know, keep doing it is what I would suggest. What you've just alluded to, actually, you know we're embarking on a massive sea change within the agriculture in the UK, and if your business doesn't fit that model, then you've really got to look at it and work out how you're going to manoeuvre yourself into a position where, you know, you can still bring some bread and cheese home to the family.
Jeff Probert from Northingtown Farm, first generation farmer. We've been here 26 years now, predominantly a livestock farm, and yeah, we sell quite a few pedigree sheep as well from this holding, so that's what we are really. My father started farming by Aberedo near Bilthwells, mid Wales, on the River Wye, on a council holding, and they moved down to Llandovery, and then they moved back to Leominster, and then I'm the youngest of 4 children, so being the only Englishman, I was sent further into England, as it were, to farm. So it was an opportunity we took, and we're very pleased about it. There's little doubt that within the sheep industry, especially on the lowland flocks, there's been a huge influence from continental breeds, mainly Texels and Charolais these days. So probably the quality of meat produced from the lowland flocks has improved dramatically, but also there's been huge improvement in the upland flocks as well. And the only worry there is that there's the infrastructure and changes in the upland flocks as they're encouraged to depopulate on the hills, whether the volume of sheep and the infrastructure will remain going forward. Probably there's a bit of irony here because pre-Brexit, we were told that the sheep industry would nigh on collapse and there would be no markets within Europe for them. And so far, it's probably been the best 2 or 3 year period that I've experienced particularly farming. But I think that it really is supply and demand, and the numbers aren't out there, and the demand is there still across Europe and across the UK, and the job looks good going forward. But it comes down to the fact that there aren't the numbers of sheep, and there certainly isn't the level of stockmanship around that we need on a readily available basis. One of the greatest assets or attributes we've had over the last few years is we built up a wonderful customer base for our rams, and we've sold out again this year. We've had 3 people ring in the last few days wanting rams, and those people have seen us develop and grow and support us, and we're producing a product that they want.
My name's Alan Payne. We've farmed round Whitley Park Farm for a long time. My grandfather cleared it as part of the war effort, and we came back and bought the farm actually in 1963. And potatoes has always been a part of our farming, but when the sugar beet industry closed down, we decided to expand our potatoes to quite a lot of acreage, and we farm regularly 400 to 500 acres of potatoes. I left school and college and we went into the common market, and I sort of realised the opportunities that would bring. Free market across Europe. I wish we still had that now, but things have changed the last couple of years, obviously. When I started, there was no such thing as forklift trucks. Tractors were 70 or 80 horsepower. Everything was done by hand, basically, apart from a few jobs that could be done with the tractors, you know. And it's so different these days. Chip shop, chips, McCain's, wedges, all that sort of stuff that's processed, and your packing sector is the stuff that ends up in Tesco's and the other supermarkets, which the housewives buy and peel themselves. And as you can imagine, with the way things are going, the processing sector is growing, and the packing sector is quietly getting less and less. And luckily, I say luckily, over the years, the market that we're in's been growing nice and steadily. So we're okay. So I've got 2 sons that are following me, but that's not the case with every farm in the country. So yeah, a little bit concerned. Who's going to do it in the future? You know, when I was younger, you'd worry about things going the wrong way for you, but I don't tend to worry so much anymore.
My dad used to work not too far away at Top Barn Farm, and before the business centre got developed, I can remember vividly like the turkey sheds and the cattle. I can remember walking behind David Harper one day, a long time ago. I bet there's no one else who can remember it. Just walking up and down the cattle shed, which I think is now, well, it's all units. It used to be Robinson Vogue, but it's gone from there. And you just used to see the daily pitter-patter of change and patterns, and yeah, I suppose that's where that sort of passion came from, really, a long time ago. We farm either side of the River Severn in Holt Heath, growing a wide range of horticultural crops, but as part of our rotation we grow about 100 acres of potatoes on some light and challenging land for various markets. And I've been doing this job for 8 years for the Arnold family. Nowadays, the potato job is becoming more challenging. You have to be in a bigger scale. You've got to be able to do every operation cheap, efficiently, and I suspect the time is coming this side of the UK, where unless you're in a big scale and you've got big fields, you cannot get that. Everything's just a bit harder work than when you're in the east in a 50-acre field. Over this side of the country, you're in a 15-acre field, 10-acre field with more headlands, more hassle. So yeah, that's the sort of potato operation we do, supplying chip shops and a few boiling potatoes, you know, your bag of potatoes. But that's a dying trade now with the supermarkets doing deliveries and that kind of thing. People don't want to go to a farm shop and have a 25-kilo bag of spuds. They'll have a different variety every week, or 2.5-kilo bag. And these potatoes are loss leaders. They're just something everyone has every week, and it's nothing. It's so challenging, the potato job.
grandfather, John Spilsbury, he was the first one here. We're tenant farmers on this farm, at Alton Court Farm, where the hops are. So then Father Philip and then me, Tom. With hops it's amazing because you only actually spend about 3 weeks without planting hops. So you'll spend hours and hours and hours spraying at night or early morning because it's too hot or too windy or it's been too wet. And it's crazy, there's only 3 weeks of about 7 months that you actually get to see those hops actually in cone. So when it comes to the harvesting bit, it's really exciting. So the hops are grown on bines, sometimes mistaken with vines, but they're bines. So that machine will cut them and pull them, and the guys in the trailer are trying to lay them neatly so that when they've got a full load or come to the end of the row, they'll then transport that trailer up to the processing shed. And their job really is trying to make it a nice load, so when they unload it at the other end, it gets lifted onto the hop picking track nicely to stop sort of blockages and that sort of stuff. As it goes out the machine, it's just separating. First of all, it's separating the sprays or the laterals from the vertical bine. It's then stripping the cones off the laterals, and then it's a case of separating the leaves from the hops and also the petals. Then from there, the final conveyor goes into a holding bin. Those hops are held all day. Well, we try to get them into the kiln as soon as we can, but it always ensures that the oldest hops are going into the kiln to try and cut down the time they're sat around. Basically, we basically want them stripped from the bine and in that kiln within 4 to 5 hours. So as they go into that kiln, they're dried using hot air. We've got a 3-tier kiln, so each bed is only 27 centimetres deep, so a total of around about just shy of a metre. The good thing about that is, if you imagine an older system would have over a metre of hops deep in one go, whereas we're only ever removing the moisture from the top layer all the time. It's something we put in 4 to 5 years ago, but it was also trying to mechanise it, because we used to probably have 5 guys involved in that process who'd be working sort of 14, 15-hour days, whereas now it's just myself and one other guy baling, so it saved quite a lot of labour. Once that gets down to a certain moisture, the louver floors, we tip it down to the next layer, and then when the top layer again gets to a certain moisture level, we tip the middle layer onto the bottom layer, the top layer onto the middle layer, and fill the top. Then you've got your 3 tiers, and we might do that 12 times, 14 times in a day. They're pressing, so they're taking the hops from the conditioning bins. It's also automated, so when he presses the green button, lots of conveyor belts start, it basically takes it into that baler, and it'll press it perhaps 6 times, and then that will create a 60 kilo bale of hops. This year we only grew half of our hops, and that was, yes, it was exacerbated by COVID, but the market was heading to a long situation because of a lot of American hops and the demand for those high impact flavours. But I hope that in time people will go back to cask ale, go back in the pub and drink in the pub as well as at home.
Hello, my name's Philip Owen and I farm in Little Whitley. I grow asparagus, cherries, strawberries, raspberries, apricots and plums. Dad, Grandad, great-granddad had the farm and I just carried on through. We went to agriculture college and then came back and onto the farm. I've had a few strawberries here for many years really, and they used to be grown on the floor with no tunnels. Now we grow on tabletops, in tunnels. We have to get the quality, obviously with the English weather, we're never sure it's going to rain or what we're going to get. But it makes it a lot easier for picking, for quality, everything. Strawberries in particular, you start off in March and they look awful, and you plant some in March and there's just hardly anything there, you just see the bag, and about 8 weeks later you see just the massive flowers there and you think, yeah, I can't wait till it's, and then the weather changes and they all come on the same day and you think, oh, for goodness sake. But it is, you just see them starting to get going and all of a sudden they're there, and you go in one morning and you pick one strawberry and 2 days later you're picking 50, 60 trays. So it is quite amazing how it works like that. And the everbear as we grow as well, you see them start to just get going, a few flowers trickling through, and then all of a sudden they pick up to a point and you pick like hell for a few weeks, then it drops down and it's slower, then it picks up again, and it just goes like that with the weather. But it is, that's kind of why you do it, because it's just nice to see how things go, and you really notice it. The climate's changing, everything, you know, the strawberries go from looking awful, you clean them off, they're nice and green, and to really green and lush and lots of flowers and fruit, and now you look at them now and they're all going red and turning, and they'll start to die down as soon as you get some really cold weather. And you can see that every year like that. On a small family farm, it's very important to adapt and just to try and do what you can to keep things going, really, and just adapt. And at the moment, people want to buy local. That's what I'm trying to do, is sell as much local as possible. Raspberries, we planted probably first lot 10 or 15 years ago, and they just fit in well. They can go and pick those every other day or whatever when they're doing the strawberries, and do a couple of tons of raspberries a year. The labour is really worrying for all of us, I think. It's just getting labour to come through and do the jobs is going to be difficult, I think. And all the commodity prices are going up, and we need the prices of all the produce to go up. Whether that will happen, I don't know. I don't know. We shall see what the public will do.
Because we've got a 50-year-old vineyard, we are benefiting from the work of generations before us in establishing these lovely vines. And I think most people who work on the land are aware of the debt that they owe to the past and the obligations they've got to the future. We might own the vineyard temporarily, but actually we're really just custodians of the land for the next generation. And I hope in 50 years' time this vineyard will still be banging out great grapes and making good wine. This year we've had a late start and then a glorious autumn like this, so I think each year has got its own challenges, and that's what makes it both exciting and challenging. I promised I wouldn't be the sort of farmer who's grumpy about the weather all the time, but I'm certainly always got a weather eye out, because it has made so much difference to what we do and when we do it. There's a big disconnect these days between people and where their food comes from. I don't think they really understand the food chain. I don't think they understand how important production is. I don't think they understand how difficult it is. I don't necessarily think they understand why they should pay a proper amount for properly produced food, and it needs to be reversed, because as recent times have shown, we can't depend upon shipping our labour in to do the hard work from overseas anymore, cheap. We can't necessarily rely on other people to grow our food for us. We've got to be more respectful of the agricultural industry and value it and treasure it, because basically it's what comes between us and starvation at the end of the day. We're really lucky that we're able to do our harvest by using local volunteers from the community. They're our friends, they're our neighbours, they're our workforce today, but more important than that, they're sort of ambassadors of our business.
You go up and down these rows of grapes, chatting away to the person that's on the other side. You pick one side, the other person who you're with picks the other side. You relax so much. Really and truly, you can't put your finger on it.
You know, the community in a place like this is absolutely first rate and totally important.
I'm Paul Drew, and I'm a partner in this Haven Nurseries here in Little Whitley. We probably have always grown tomatoes, but not always solely. We used to grow market garden vegetables and flowers. In the early 80s, we changed across to cherry tomatoes, which was a new crop. And subsequently, we're now growing about 7 or 8 different varieties, catering for our local shops. Well, we've got about 2 acres of glass here that's computer controlled, and we have a biomass boiler heating it, very similar to our central heating in a house. There is tracks down each row, which hot water is pumped down to give us the heat. and we use the tracks for running trolleys down so that we can pick the crop and work the crop off high-rise trolleys. We'll plant this crop in early December through the poor light in the early parts of the winter for harvesting on and around the end of March. Fortunately, in the time that we're out of production, which is probably from mid-November through to end of March, the foreign tomatoes are brought into the country, and for some reason they don't taste as well as our stuff or the English stuff does, and therefore there's always a market for us when we open up next year, which is very good. I don't think it's anything we do especially here, it's just that they grow different varieties, and those varieties aren't quite as flavoursome as the sort of stuff we're doing. 50% of the volume actually goes to a pack house in Evesham that would go to the supermarkets, and that's quite easy to do in the sense we just put them into 12 kilo crates and they're packed down there in a proper pack house. So that alleviates some labour there, but the growing for the farm shops is quite labour intensive and doesn't come without a cost. We pick twice a week of any particular variety. We don't hang on to stuff, therefore what we provide for our outlets is fresh. It's the same variety every week if they want it, and hopefully the quality comes from that. And of course the success of us is only going to be if the customers have a benefit from using what we provide, because without them we would not be doing what we are doing, in other words growing several varieties. Therefore we will just grow probably one variety specifically for the supermarket outlet, and I guess that would be a little bit more boring.
Well, people focus on the harvest and think that's the job. You know, you wait all year for the fruit to appear, and then you have to get up in the morning and go off and get it picked, and that's it, done. It's pretty much, I'd say, 9 to 10 months of the year job with the work. Obviously, coming into this time of year in November, December, January, there's not a lot you can and do. But you still got tidy up jobs to do. It's not glamorous in that way, and the weather's obviously not great, so you pick your moments. But you still got to do an awful lot of planning work. Grit does a lot of technical work in sorting out the audits that we have to do, how we comply, because it's not a job where that's done on the day when an audit happens. It's all in the planning, in the detail.
It's all year round, really.
Yeah, and we're starting to plan what labour we need for next year. Then we need to do crop estimates. We're talking with customers still. All these things go on all through the year, and it's just not the highlight when we come to picking. It's the biggest stress in the year for sure, because every day you're thinking who's turning up for work, and that job is not getting easier. We're as a country facing big issues in labour, not just the cost of it, but the availability of it, and that isn't getting cheaper. It's only going one way, and it's been a massive hike this year, and will continue to do so. But we've been quite successful in hiring local people, mostly students at college, and from word of mouth from that over the last 2 years, that's really built, and we've got a lot of people that want to return and work on the farm to do the harvest work, and that's good. We're not too big where we can't adapt quick, and that's been a real benefit for us over the last 2 years. As long as our customer pays more for the fruit, then that's the way the market goes. Unfortunately, customers don't always want to pay more, and everyone wants to say we're cheap. No one wants to say we're best quality at that right value. So we do that with our shop, where everything locally in the village that we sell is harvested on the same day. It's always the best variety, it's always the best fruit, and it's something you can't buy elsewhere. So we're quite proud that we do that good job. But when we do every other job to create that fruit, it's with a view of efficiency harvest. So it starts with how we're doing our pruning, and I try to prune nearly every tree myself, because I'm thinking at every cut, how's that going to affect the growth of the tree? Is that in the right area of the tree where we can see the fruit, where we can pick the fruit fast, and take our low-skilled labour that isn't always so motivated in picking fruit every day, and making it the easiest job for them to do. You know, in the previous years, if we'd had Bulgarian or Romanian students speaking, they'd be talking, you wouldn't understand a word they're saying, and maybe you're ignorantly thinking everything's okay when it's not, so that's not a good thing. But generally they got their head down and worked, and what you find with these college lads is that from 7:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the day, or whatever hours they're working, they don't stop talking. They're talking about everything that's important in their life, and they're very free with their talking. You know when it's an hour before break time because everyone's talking about where they want to go and eat.
Hello, I'm Mike Goodman and I'm a goose and turkey farmer. I'm part of a family business which we trade as Goodman Brothers, and we're producing about 4,000 geese and 6,000 turkeys, mainly for the Christmas market. Also on the farm we have about 400 acres of arable and a herd of longhorn cattle. Walsgrove Farm's been in the family since 1956. Actually, my grandfather bought the farm, and these grass banks here are special because we've actually had geese grazing these banks now for 37 years, and it's the same fields we've had the geese on, and it's quite a length of time really. My mother started the goose enterprise up in 1984 as an alternative enterprise for the farm. We were mainly dairy farmers then, and I think she started with 26 birds. So over the course of 30 plus years, you know, we've grown to quite a large number now, and it is the main enterprise on the farm, the poultry, the geese and turkeys. We've got two markets really. We've got direct sales, direct to the customer, which some go via a courier, via FedEx, and some are picked up just before Christmas from the farm gate. And the other market is butchers' shops all around the country. You know, from London to Carlisle, we have butchers' shops we supply. We're producing a product. We're going right through the whole system, aren't we? We're going from the day-old gosling right through to the sale to the final customer. We're doing the whole process ourselves, basically. From the growing, the processing and the marketing, we're doing everything ourselves. And I always obviously, we get a lot of orders come through on the internet now, and this year everything's been 6 weeks ahead of normal ordering times. Within another 3 weeks we'll be sold out of our own farm gate allocation. Geese are really good grazers. They graze down really tight, and then they're actually shut back into their house at night. I think these are in polytunnels, and then they're fed a compound feed mixed with wheat at night. Yeah, and the 4,000 geese we've got at the moment, they're eating per week, they're eating about 10 tonne of food a week. There's no byproducts with turkeys, but geese, there are two byproducts. Firstly, the feathers, and these are then sold to a feather merchant and they go into pillows and duvets. You approximately get about 250 grams of feather per bird. So if you work that up, that usually leaves us with about just over a tonne of, well, it's feather, it's mainly down actually, small feather and down to sell. And the value of that is about £7,000 a year. So, you know, it's quite a considerable asset to have the feather. The other byproduct we have is the goose fat. Probably 20 years ago, there was no market for goose fat at all. And then some of the kind of chefs and restaurant people, they started cooking their roast potatoes in goose fat, and suddenly there became a market for the goose fat. When you're taking the orders and the orders are coming in, which are mainly online, you recognise the names, you know, and you have a great pleasure in serving the same customers and producing a high quality Christmas dinner for them.
I'm David and this is my wife Margaret. We live here, or had been, at Mollytown Farm, about a mile out of Clibberry Mortimer, and we've been here since 1978. It is basically a dairy farm. We try to be self-sufficient with our grain crops to feed the cows. We run about 330 cows, and we're milking usually about 260, 270 through a robiotic milking system. At times the dairy produces more profit, and at other times it produces very little profit, just depending on the wholesale price of milk that's in the tanker that we sell the surplus milk. So as it is at the moment, farming is not too bad, not brilliant, but we're happy, and that's all that matters. Some of our farm shops has installed little milk distribution machines, and they're buying the milk in volume instead of in plastic bottles and selling it to the people who wants to have it in glass. They buy glass bottles and has it that way, and that's fine. And we're not too sure how environmentally friendly we need to get. There's much more we can do. We will always have an open mind to see what is the best for our customers and the environment. We try to be, as I said, self-sufficient with our grain. We grow about over 300 acres. We use 90% of the grain on the farm for the cows, and we try to be environmentally friendly with producing energy from solar panels, wind turbine, and a digester, which uses the gas from the cow's milk to make the electric, which drives the farm and the pasteurising in the plant. So yes, we are more than self-sufficient with electric on this farm.
And it even heats a house?
Yes, the water from the digester heats the house. At this moment the sun is shining, the solar panels will be working, the turbine isn't going, there's no wind, but the digester is going. The cows are still producing out the other end, which creates the gas that propels the place. It's cut me out. If we don't look after our animals, our cows, they don't look after us. So happy cows makes happy farmers. Farming certainly has its trying times, but it is a miracle in itself. When we see a newborn calf, we plant the seeds, we do our part, and the Lord does his part, and together we seem to have a good, successful business.
The whole of agriculture is itself amazing, and I find it, really life-affirming to be part of it, actually.
In our industry, a lot of emphasis tends to get put on the winemaker and, like my role, but really I see the ingredients, my raw ingredients as the most important thing. It amazes us every year.
The bit that always captivated me with fruit growing was the, just watching a bud break to a flower forming and then being fertilised and then developing a fruit. Watching the leaf growth and the extension growth and how a tree wants to grow. It's fascinating stuff and I love it. I always have that. I've always found it just a wonder.
Okay, in my hand here I've got a few seeds of wheat from the stack behind me, and I'm going to take 1 grain of wheat. Now the miracle is that 1 grain, if I put it in the ground, it would germinate under the right conditions, then it would produce 50 grains of wheat. If then I put those 50 grains in the soil the next year and grew them again, it would produce 2,500 grains. If I grew that and kept replanting for another 4 years, incredibly it would produce the 600 tons stack that we see behind. Now, isn't that a miracle? But we get so used to it, but it's God's miracle, and we as farmers are part of it.
You just see them start to get going and all of a sudden they're there, and you go in one morning and you pick 1 strawberry and 2 days later you're picking 50, 60 trays. So it is quite amazing how it works like that.
Every morning you wake up and you go drive around your farm and you see a difference. It's a good way of life. No regrets whatsoever.
I love it. It's challenging every day. It's just seeing how things evolve, how you can tweak things. It's just amazing. It's just like one big science experiment.
The seed arrives and it's a tiny box really, and that will produce 1,000 or 1,200 tons of fodder for the sheep. It is unbelievable how it grows.
But I always think when you drive up from Great Whitley and look down over Team Valley, that's a true reflection of what you're looking after.
something so small and you've put it in the ground, yeah, and then you've left it, you've watered it, sometimes you may apply things to just try and protect it, or you may just leave it to grow, and then it comes out. That's a miracle.
You were talking of the miracle of harvesting this year, and this year more than any has seemed a really tough year for you. Talk to any farmer. When you think of all the problems we've had, we still end up with a reasonable crop of quite actually good quality. That does amaze me, and I wonder what puts in place the system to create that, because we can do all the managing we want and we all think we're clever, and sometimes the best job is not doing anything at all, and sometimes if you just leave nature to it, you can be quite amazed with what happens.
We can have all the land we want and all the machinery to do the job, but unless that little seed germinates or the potato sprouts or the rhizome roots, then there would be no crop the next year. And so to me, farming is a miracle, and I love it.